They said he rode with the fury of a storm and left behind only silence. His name still echoes through the bones of history. Genghis Khan, the man who built an empire out of blood, fear, and ash. But behind the roar of his conquests lies a story few dare to tell. A story about what he did to those who defied him and to the wives of his enemies. What Genghis Khan did was not just war, it was a message carved into flesh and memory. A message that said, "Defy me, and I will erase your name, your bloodline, and your legacy." Tonight, we uncover the darkness behind the empire, the side of Genghis Khan the history books whisper about but rarely show. The story begins in the frozen steppes of Mongolia around the year 1162. A boy named Temujin was born into hunger, betrayal, and chaos. When his father was poisoned by enemies, his family was left to die. Temujin grew up watching his mother struggle to feed her children with roots and insects. From those years of suffering, something dark began to grow inside him, a conviction that mercy was weakness and that fear was power. When he finally rose from the dust to unite the Mongol tribes, he became more than a man. He became a force of nature. He took the name Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. But to unite the world, he believed he had to crush it first. When the Khwarezmian Empire insulted him, killing his envoys and mocking his power. Genghis Khan's rage ignited a fire that would consume Central Asia. City after city fell. The Mongols didn't just conquer, they punished. The men were slaughtered. The soldiers were impaled as warnings, and the women were taken. It wasn't lust, it was symbolism, a way to erase the bloodline of the enemy and mark the land as Mongol property. In Genghis Khan's mind, every enemy's wife was a weapon. Every child born from her would carry Mongol blood. To him, that was victory not just on the battlefield, but in the womb of the defeated. The Mongols followed a strict code, the Yasa laws that balanced loyalty with terror. Disobedience meant death. Betrayal meant the destruction of entire families. When a city resisted, the punishment extended far beyond the walls. The wives of rulers, generals, and nobles were taken captive, often distributed among Mongol commanders or brought to Genghis himself as tokens of conquest. In one campaign, after the city of Nishapur rebelled and killed his son-in-law, Genghis ordered every living soul executed. The city's women, numbering in the thousands, were divided as spoils, their cries swallowed by the burning wind of the steppe. The message was clear: if you defy the Khan, even your tears will belong to him. Among the many stories buried in Mongol history, one stands out: the legend of the Queen of Samarkand. When Genghis Khan's forces captured the city, its ruler was slain, and his wife, famed for her beauty and wisdom, was brought before the Khan. She stood tall, unbroken, even in chains. It said Genghis looked at her and asked, "Do you fear me?" She replied, "I fear only the gods." For a moment, silence. And then he smiled. He ordered her spared, but made her watch as her palace burned. She was sent east, not as a queen, but as a captive in his growing empire. Her fate remains unknown. Some say she was given to a Mongol general. Others whisper she became a concubine in Kut. But her defiance lived on in stories, a reminder that even in the darkest night of conquest, some refused to bow. Modern historians estimate that 1 in every 200 men alive today carries the DNA of Genghis Khan. That's nearly 16 million descendants, proof that his domination extended far beyond war. He turned reproduction into empire building through strategic marriages, forced unions, and war spoils. He ensured Mongol blood would mix with the defeated across Asia and Europe. For him, every woman taken, every child born, was another thread in the fabric of Mongol supremacy. It wasn't love, it was strategy. It wasn't family, it was legacy. To Genghis, the world itself was a map, and every life was a mark of his ownership. When the wars ended, the silence that followed was worse than the screams. In the ruins of conquered cities, widows wandered like shadows. Some were taken into Mongol households, others were left to starve, their lands turned to dust. The Khan's soldiers had moved on, but the memories of what they had done lingered. Songs turned into laments. Children born from conquest grew up between two worlds, never fully Mongol, never fully their mother's people. Empires forget, but the mothers remember, and their stories pass down in whispers. Tales of cities that vanished, and women whose tears became rivers in the desert. Near the end of his life, Genghis Khan sat in his camp, surrounded by maps drawn from blood and ash. He had conquered more land than any man before him, yet peace eluded him. Some accounts say he began to dream of the faces of those he had destroyed. The women who cursed him, the wives of his enemies who stared at him in silence before being taken away. It said he once told a shaman, "I have conquered the world, but not myself." When he died in 1227, his burial place was kept secret. No one knows where the great Khan lies, but perhaps that's fitting. Because his shadow doesn't rest in one place, it still moves through the stories of those who suffered under his reign. History remembers Genghis Khan as a conqueror, a genius, a unifier. But behind every empire is a trail of tears, and behind every victory, 1,000 silent screams. The wives of his enemies became the forgotten price of his ambition. Their stories are a chilling reminder that the true cost of an empire is not measured in land or gold, but in the lives it breaks and the futures it steals. Thank you for watching. If you want to explore more hidden stories from history, make sure to subscribe.